There was a time when I felt like my entire life was trapped inside a box I couldn't open. I had dreams, big, beautiful dreams. I wanted to work internationally, make friends from around the world, travel to places I had only seen in pictures, and most of all, I wanted to grow beyond the limits I was born into. But every time I tried to move forward, I ran into the same wall: English. I knew that if I wanted a better future, I had to speak the global language. But I couldn't. I couldn't hold a conversation. I couldn't understand native speakers. I couldn't even order food or answer simple questions without feeling nervous. Every time someone asked me something in English, I panicked. My mind went blank. I would nod, smile awkwardly, and walk away, feeling small and helpless. There were nights when I stayed up thinking, what's wrong with me? Why is this so hard? I felt embarrassed. I felt left behind. I watched people my age succeed just because they could speak English fluently. They got the jobs, they passed the interviews, they connected with people across the globe, while I stayed in the same place, feeling stuck and silent. But deep down, I knew one thing. I didn't want to live my whole life like this. I didn't want to be afraid of my own voice anymore. I didn't want to miss another opportunity just because I couldn't express myself. So I made a decision. I told myself, no more excuses, no more fear. From today, I will learn English. And I started, with no teacher, no expensive course, no perfect environment. Just me, my phone, my notebook, and a fire in my heart. I watched YouTube videos. I downloaded free apps. I listened to podcasts I barely understood. I read children's books. I memorized words one by one. I spoke to myself in the mirror. I repeated the same phrases over and over. I failed. I forgot. I mispronounced words. I laughed at myself. I cried. But I didn't quit. I kept going, even on the days when I wanted to give up. Even when people told me I was wasting my time. Slowly, something began to change. One day, I understood a full sentence in a movie without subtitles. Another day, I answered a message from a foreign friend with confidence. Then I joined an online community and introduced myself in English. For the first time in my life, step by step, my world grew bigger. I started writing my thoughts in English. I started thinking in English. I began to speak without fear. I realized I no longer felt invisible. English gave me more than just vocabulary. It gave me courage. It gave me confidence. It gave me access to the world. I began to apply for international jobs, and this time I got replies. I made friends I never would have met otherwise. I attended webinars, read global books, learned from mentors across continents. I found a voice I didn't know I had, and the more I spoke, the more alive I felt. Today, I look back at the version of myself who was too scared to say hello, and I smile, not because I'm perfect now, but because I didn't stop. I chose to grow. I chose to fight through the fear. And now I can say it with pride. English has changed my life. It has changed the way I think, the way I dream, and the way I live. It didn't happen overnight, and it wasn't easy, but it was worth it. If you're learning English right now and struggling, please don't give up. You are not alone. You don't have to be fluent to be brave. You just have to take one step at a time. Every new word you learn, every sentence you try, every mistake you make, it all matters. It's part of your transformation. You're not just learning a language. You're unlocking your future. You're becoming a new version of yourself. And one day, I promise you, you'll look back and say the words I say today with pride, with joy, and with gratitude. English changed my life. I remember the exact moment I realized I couldn't wait any longer. I was sitting alone, frustrated and tired of feeling stuck, tired of missing opportunities, tired of pretending to understand when I didn't. I looked at myself in the mirror and saw someone full of dreams, but chained by fear, a fear that came from not being able to speak, not being able to express, not being able to connect. That day, I made a quiet promise to myself. No big announcement, no cheering crowd, just a whisper deep in my heart that said, I will learn English. I don't know how, and I don't know how long it will take, but I will do it. I knew I had no special resources. I didn't grow up in an English-speaking environment. I had no personal teacher, no private school, and no one around to guide me. But I had something more important than all of that. I had a decision, a real one that came from my soul. And once I made that decision, I refused to look back. I began with what I had. I picked up an old phone and started searching for English videos. At first, I couldn't understand anything. The words came too fast, the accents too heavy. But I told myself, just listen. Let your ears get used to it. I replayed the same sentence 10 times if I had to. I repeated phrases out loud again and again, even when I sounded wrong. I downloaded language apps. I wrote down new vocabulary in a small notebook I carried with me everywhere. I read English subtitles while watching movies, pausing again and again to understand a single line. Sometimes, I would write short paragraphs and delete them because I thought they weren't good enough. I kept speaking to myself in English, late at night, whispering the words into the silence of my room, imagining that one day I'd speak with confidence. Some days I felt stupid. Some days I felt alone. Some days I cried because progress felt so slow it was almost invisible. But I kept going. I didn't have motivation every day, but I had discipline. I reminded myself why I started. I reminded myself of the doors English could open, of the people I could meet, of the person I could become. I didn't need to be perfect. I just needed to keep moving. Every mistake became a lesson. Every new word became a small victory. I stopped being afraid of getting it wrong and started celebrating the fact that I was trying. And over time, I realized something powerful. The hardest part wasn't the grammar, or the pronunciation, or the vocabulary. The hardest part was believing in myself at the beginning, trusting that even if no one saw my progress, even if the journey was long and lonely, it was still worth it. I started to see learning English not just as a skill, but as a path to transformation. I was rebuilding my confidence, brick by brick. I was turning fear into fuel. I was creating a new version of myself, one who didn't hide, one who didn't stay silent, one who believed that growth was possible. I had no clear finish line, no guaranteed success, but I had a reason, and that reason was enough. So I kept showing up, day after day, step by step, mistake by mistake, word by word, because I knew that something bigger than language was changing inside me. I wasn't just learning English, I was learning how to believe in myself again. At first, the progress was so small that even I didn't notice it. But little by little, things began to shift. One day, I watched an English video, and for the first time, I understood a full sentence without needing subtitles. I paused, smiled, and whispered to myself, "Did I just get that?" Another day, I went to a small shop where the cashier spoke only English, and I managed to answer confidently. It wasn't perfect, but it was real. These were small moments, but to me, they felt like huge victories. Each one lit a new spark inside me. I began to realize that I was changing, that I was growing. I could introduce myself without fear. I could send emails without double-checking every word 1,000 times. I joined online forums, wrote simple comments, and even started chatting with people from other countries. The fear I used to feel was still there, but it was getting smaller. I was no longer afraid to be wrong. I was proud to be trying. I stopped focusing on perfection and started focusing on connection. My vocabulary expanded, and my confidence grew with it. I began reading English books, slowly, with a dictionary beside me. Sometimes one page took an hour, but I kept going. I listened to podcasts during walks. I spoke to myself in English when I was alone. It became part of my daily life, part of my identity, and gradually the results began to show. I could express my ideas clearly in conversations. I felt brave enough to speak up in meetings or group chats. When someone asked me something in English, I no longer froze. I responded. Maybe not perfectly, but I responded. I even started to think in English, without translating in my head. That was a moment I'll never forget. The moment I realized I wasn't just learning English anymore. I was starting to live it. My mindset began to change. I stopped seeing myself as someone who was trying to speak English and started seeing myself as someone who does. The world felt closer, smaller, more accessible. I realized that English wasn't just a language, it was a bridge to confidence, to connection, and to a version of myself I had always dreamed of becoming. And this was just the beginning. I wasn't fluent, I wasn't perfect, but I was better than yesterday, and that gave me more motivation than anything else. I was no longer watching the world from behind a glass wall. I was stepping into it, one sentence at a time.